Okay, we're back. I was processing my brass. I was kind of chamfering both ends. Realized that this was a good time to use my Hornady Case Prep Duo, which I've never used. I can't figure it out, man. I've been charging it and it's not working. So I don't know what the hell. So I just did these manually. So I'm starting with the Barnes first. I'm going to go ahead and seat my primers and get them in the block. Basically, I just seat primers on the press. You know, there's a lot of different ways you guys can do it. A lot of people want to do it by hand with those little gun thingy-majigs. I don't do that. I just do it on the press real quick because, I mean, when I'm doing rifle especially, unless I'm doing 223, something with high volume, it would make sense to use something like that, but because I'm only doing 30 rounds today, it's almost effortless. But one thing I do when I am manually doing it on the press, make sure that once you get this loaded in and you're going to go down, don't hold the brass. You want the brass to just find its natural resting place. If you tweak this a little bit, the primer's going to go in at a funky angle, and that's no bueno. So I'm just kind of slowly letting it go down, and you see how it's just finding its natural way that it wants to rest on that shell holder. And then because I don't have my press bolted down, I'm just grabbing the press here, giving it a light push, and that thing is seated perfectly. But yeah, just going to finish this up. I am going to finish this up, and I'm going to go ahead and re-warm up the powder measure, and then we're going to start. I got 10 ready to go now for the Barnes. We're going to start with the Barnes 127 grain LRX. I'm going to leave the rest of the cases in here, the rest of the primers in here, and this way I don't have any mismeasured. I don't want to prime all 30 cases because all 30 cases are going to have different weights depending on the bullets. So I'm just going to do the 10 at a time. I'm going to go ahead and do the Barnes, which we're starting now, and then we're going to come back and do the Nosler, and then we're going to come back and do the Hornady. And I prefer this method because I'm going to have 3 different weights going on for powders, and I don't want to mess with that. Oh, and you know what? This is probably a good time before I forget. I'm going to go ahead and loosen this because on my last series, I can't remember what bullet I left off with. So I don't want to end up seating something too low. So I will show you guys how I adjust these manually once we get going. But all right, everybody, we're back. I am just double checking my my powder measure just to make sure, just comparing it against the beam scale. I usually want to do this a few times just because I did notice a slight, and when I say slight, I'm talking 0.1 grain on this. So far I haven't experienced that. I've already done 4 test loads in the 505 scale, and let's see, that one, yep, right on the line. So all 4 have been right on the line. So it seems to be money today. It's working exceptionally well. So let me show you what we got going on over here. So I'm just going through my binders here. So I originally started my load data on 10/7/24. So we're doing Barnes right now, okay? So I get this off their website. This is easy to print out. It's the exact bullet, gives you the BC, the overall cartridge length, all that kind of stuff. So it gives you the powder, you know, the different powders. So I'm using the H4350. So originally I did a ladder test. So I started at 37 grain, then I did a 38, and then I did a 39. Obviously my 39 yielded the best results. I'm not going to exceed what their maximum charge is, which on theirs is 40.4. And they had a total of 2738 FPS, which is kind of that, more or less that sweet spot. I was going to go straight to 40, but you know what I said? You know what? I'm just going to do 39.5, and that way I have 0.9 to work with if I try to bump it up from there. So on my last load, when I did the 39, which was this group number 3, I was at 2507 FPS. So if I can get close to like that 2650, I'm good with that. So let me see where we are with this. I'm going to try to get you guys a little closer and try not to bang on anything. So that load is spot on. This one does say 39.5, but now it's kind of going back and forth between 39.4, 39.5. So maybe that's just a result of me kind of bumping into shit. But let me go ahead and get this in the 505. And that'll be the 5th one. And if that thing is money, I'm going to go ahead and re-zero everything. Start the counter back at 1. And it's still leveling off, but we are... It's right on the line. So let me go ahead and re-zero this. I'm going to go back to 39.5 and let it go. Let it do its thing. And I'm not going to use this charge. I'm going to wait till this one's done, and I'm going to put that charge back in. I'm going to wait till it's done. I don't want to bang anything around. Bandit, go. Don't touch my bench, Bandit. Go. Bandit, go. Freaking dog. Okay. So that one's good. We're stable. So I'm going to move my calipers. I'm going to very carefully put the load block here so it's more in view for you guys. So on the counter, that's number 1. I use this Lyman funnel. I'm becoming a real fan of Lyman stuff. I think they make the best stuff. I'm just going to say it. Their stuff is quality. I really like it. And then while I'm at it, since this is not set to automatic right now, this is set to manual, I'm going to let that thing hang out real quick, and then I'm going to go ahead and clear this. I am no longer going to use the 505. I may, once I get about 5 rounds in, I may throw one on the 505 just to make sure that we are still hitting where we need to be. But in a nutshell, this, I think, is the safest way to go about this, especially since we're nearing that maximum for this charge. You know what I mean? Do a few charges if you're going to use an electric powder measure, but compare it to a beam scale or a small digital scale. Just make sure, don't just rely on this once you turn it on and warm it up and get it calibrated. Check it a few times. You just want to make sure you're being safe. There's nothing wrong with being safe. A lot of people, maybe they've used their equipment so much that they have the utmost amount of trust in it, and I get all of that, but again, there's nothing wrong with being safe. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish getting these going, and then we'll move to the press. We'll go ahead and seat some bullets. Okay, I'm done charging. That was extremely fast. You're probably not going to be able to see, but yeah, that went extremely quick. These Barnes bullets, they're really long. They're well over an inch long. So I'm curious to see with that volume of powder in there if this is going to end up being a compression load. They don't have any notes of that on the factory load data, but I'm going to go ahead and proceed with caution. I am going to get my press dialed in. I'll probably load the first 2 or 3 and then just make sure that I'm good. And then I will be back so you guys can join me. I'm going to go ahead and get the bullet comparator set up and get, like, 2, maybe 3 rounds loaded up. Just make sure that I'm good, like I said. Just in case this ends up being a compression load, I will proceed with caution, but I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. I got my first round pressed. I am still setting the die, so for right now it's a little long, but compared to my last load data, On my ogive, I should have 2.167, so I am close. So I'm glad this is kind of how I set up bullets. I want to get it close, so what I will do is I will just do this incrementally to make it safe. I'll back this off a little bit, turn that in a hair, lock it back in. I'll go through it one more time, very delicately. It's not a compression load, by the way, but that volume, I'd imagine, even though the Barnes paper, I don't know if you guys can hear that, there's a slight rattle to it. You guys probably won't hear it, but it is definitely not a compression load. But they did not specify compression load on their Mac, so that 0.9 that I still have to play with, I think I'm safe there. I'm 2.189, so I'm getting closer. And I spend the extra time to do this because I want to be as safe as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and get that down a little bit more. I want to get this to within a couple of thousandths if I can. Let's check it one more time on the comparator. So that barely did anything. I'm 2.184 and a half. Still got a little ways to go, but for the sake of safety, it's worth doing this. And obviously I could be making those adjustments with the micrometer. I save that for the end. If I get this thing within a few thousandths, then I'm not going to do it manually anymore. I'm going to go ahead and use the micrometer. Let me go ahead and re-zero this out. Let me see where I'm at. Gave me the same reading, 2.184, so that didn't do a whole lot on that one. Let me back it off on the lock ring, tighten it about a quarter of a turn. Does look beautiful. It's nothing like a freshly loaded rifle round. It's just it's a very beautiful thing. Okay, so here we go. So I'm within like 7 thousandths now. Okay, I'm aiming for 2.167. I got 2.174. I never typically pay too much attention to the halves. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just use this to adjust. So I'm gonna go ahead and crank that down a little bit, about a quarter of a turn. This should get me within a few. And I'm probably not going to do this die adjustment the entire time. Yep, got me within a few. I'm 2.170 and a half. I'm going to go ahead and just give this another little bit. I don't want to get overzealous and carried away. When I do the Hornady and the Nosler, those will be faster videos. Boom. I'm within 1,000th. So now all I'm going to do is just one little micro bink, and that should get me there. Give it one more little plop on there. Even if I'm 1,000th over or 1,000th under, I'm going to proceed. Still giving me the same reading. Let me just re-zero that out and just double check it. And we're there. 2.16 and a half. So now what I'm going to do is check my overall length, because it should be spot on to what my last load data was. Took the comparator off. I'm going to re-zero that out, and then we will check this real time. I should be, oops, I should be, oh, there it is, 2.750, and there you go. That's what my data said. So let's see. Do those measurements line up with my previous info? Yes, they do. Look at my group 3 when I did 39 grains. I'm stepping it up a half a grain from last time. My ogive is reading 2.67. My overall length is reading 2.750. So we are golden. So now, it's just a matter of chucking these bad boys on and making sure we're good. Now, I'm not going to check ogive and overall length all together. What I will do is put the comparator back on and just check my ogive, because this ogive is backed away 20 thousandths from my lands. That's how I set this low development up. I will adjust my back set as needed. So throwing the comparator back on, zeroing that out, we'll do this real time. I should hit that 2.167. If all is good, bam. Again, I'm not too worried about that half. Say what you will. That's probably important to some people. It is not important to me. This is not a precision rifle. These are hunting rounds. But I gotta say, you know, these rounds seem to be very precise for a hunting rifle. So if you guys are a little anal retentive like myself, it's always a good practice to make sure that, oh yeah, see, look, this one's coming out 2.163. I'm going to put this one off to the side. That may be in my pull pile. Let me try one more here. But that bullet just could also not be perfectly machined or whatever. And then also, these bullets have some defective tips. I touched on this in my last load development. They did have some defective tips, and I got a hold of customer service, and it took about 3 months, but I did finally have Barnes send me out a new one. 2.1665, so, I mean, that's within 1,000th. That's plenty accurate for me. Barnes did send me some new stuff. I am shooting the defective bullets because they assured me with all this like Doppler radar testing and all this kind of stuff, the ugly tips don't matter. They won't fly any differently than tips that are perfect. And I said, well, when you're spending, you know, 40 bucks or whatever it is for 50 of these bad boys, I mean, shouldn't we have perfect tips? I mean, I kind of went back and forth with them, and they said, oh, well, you know, don't worry about sending them back. You can keep them. And, you know, they should be flawless. This one right here is coming at a 2.168, which I am not overly concerned about. And just to make sure that this thing is on, I'm going to go ahead and take the comparator off. I re-zeroed it, and my overall length should be right there. See? So keep it within 1,000th if you can. If you can get the setup as dialed in as that. If I'm within 1,000th, I'm having a good day. This one was the one that came out 2.63 on the ogive. But look, we're at 2.753 on our overall length. So I'm probably going to set this one to the side. I'm going to pull this one. I will grab a new piece of brass and I will recharge it, and I will just reset it to get my 10. But in a nutshell, guys, that's my load development for the Barnes. I'm gonna load 10 of these total. So just to recap, I used my Frankfurt Arsenal IntelliDropper. I compared it to the M505 scale with the HODGDON 4350, 39.5 grains. My seating depth is per how I measured my rifle with the lock and load overall length gauge, backed off 20 thousandths from the lands. So My setup right now is 2.167 at the ogive. I'm coming out at 2.750 overall length. So I'm going to load 10 of these, and then we will be back for the nozzler in a separate video. Have a good day, guys. I'll see ya.